Before I begin this confession, let me ask you a very simple, yet vital question. Have you ever wondered just how vulnerable we are the moment we close the door to a hotel room? We walk in, drop our bags on the bed, exhale, and feel that sweet, long-awaited relief. The soft glow of the lamps, perfectly tucked sheets, the scent of cleanliness, and a large, beautiful mirror on the wall. In that moment, we believe those four walls are our temporary fortress, a place where no one can disturb us. I used to think so too. But what I discovered behind the glass of my mirror just 2 days after checking in changed my perspective on hotels, rentals, and the very concept of personal space forever. If you travel often, love discovering new places, or simply value your privacy, I ask you, please watch this video until the very end. Perhaps what you hear today will one day help you protect yourself and your family from an invisible threat. My name is Elena. 6 months ago, I realized I was on the brink of burnout and desperately needed a break. I'm 45, my children have long since grown and moved out, and work had been an exceptionally exhausting week. My home, which was once full of noise, children's laughter, and hustle, now felt far too vast and quiet. You know that heavy feeling when the silence literally starts to ring in your ears? I found a charming guest house online, right on the coast. It was an old white stone building with carved wooden shutters, draped in thick ivy, terraces overlooking the endless, ever-changing sea, and hundreds of positive reviews that unanimously promised perfect privacy, peace, and security. It was exactly the medicine my exhausted soul needed. When I arrived, reality exceeded my expectations. The air was thick with the scent of salt and ancient pines. The receptionist, a polite young man with a flawless, almost rehearsed smile, handed me the key. Room 305. After climbing to the 3rd floor via an old, pleasantly creaky wooden staircase, I opened the door and froze in delight. The room was flooded with golden sunlight. The interior, in warm beige tones, felt incredibly cozy, and directly opposite the massive king-sized bed hung a heavy, antique oak-framed mirror. I remember thinking, God, how beautiful! It makes this room look twice as large and bright. The first night was wonderful. I fell asleep to the soothing sound of the surf, feeling in absolute harmony. No, on the second evening, everything changed. You know that sticky, inexplicable feeling when it feels like someone is standing behind your back? Rationally, I knew I was alone in a locked room on the top floor, but an unpleasant chill kept running down my spine. As the sun began to set, its low orange rays hit the glass of the mirror directly. I went over to pull the thick curtains, and suddenly my gaze caught a tiny anomaly. In the very corner, right by the frame, there was a tiny dark speck. At first, I thought it was just ordinary dirt or perhaps a maid's fingerprint. I took a tissue and tried to rub it off, but the spot wouldn't budge. Looking closer, I turned cold. The dot wasn't on the outside of the glass. It was inside it. A tiny, perfectly round hole, no bigger than a pinhead. I tried to convince myself it was just a defect in an old mirror or a manufacturing flaw. But intuition is a stubborn thing. I began to scrutinize the frame and noticed it wasn't sitting as flush against the wall as it should have been. There was a barely noticeable gap at the top. Elena, you've just watched too many detective shows at night. I told myself out loud, trying to push away the rising anxiety. I lay in bed and turned off the light, but sleep wouldn't come. I stared at the dark, silent rectangle of the mirror, and it felt as though someone was peering out from that darkness, watching my every move. At 3 in the morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. Walking right up to the mirror, I remembered a simple test I had once read in a security article. I placed the tip of my index finger against the surface of the glass. Remember this rule. If there is a small gap between your finger and its reflection, it's a normal mirror. But if the reflection touches your finger directly, without the slightest gap, you are looking at a spy two-way mirror. My finger touched the reflection. There was no gap. In that moment, my heart literally dropped. An icy sweat broke out across my back. I began to frantically feel the sides of the frame, and at the very bottom, behind the carved wood patterns, I felt a tiny metal lever. With great effort, and a quiet creak that sounded like a deafening explosion in the midnight silence, I slid it, and the mirror slowly, heavily gave way, swinging forward like a door to the underworld. There was no brick wall behind it. Instead, there was a narrow technical niche built into the building. Inside, on a specially mounted bracket, stood a modern digital camera. Its lens was aimed exactly at that pinhead on the mirror. A small blue indicator on the body was blinking rhythmically, confirming my terrifying suspicion. It was recording right now. Next to it was a power supply and wires disappearing deep into the wall. I stood there in my nightgown before that open void, shaking as if I were standing in freezing cold. It felt as though my skin had been stripped off me alive. Someone had been watching me while I slept. Someone had seen my most intimate, private moments. My first reaction was to grab my things and run into the hallway, but cold logic stopped me. I realized, if I leave now, they will just dismantle everything by morning, and I'll never prove a thing. With trembling hands, I recorded everything on video. The camera in the niche, the blinking indicator, the way the mirror opened, and my room number. Only after that did I call the police. The officers arrived 15 minutes later. What they discovered during the search shocked even the seasoned forensic experts. My room was far from the only one in this trap. Similar systems were secretly built into the walls of 4 other rooms in this guest house. The cameras had been professionally installed during a major renovation 6 months prior. Suspicion immediately fell on a technical contractor who had access to all the building's blueprints and voids. When the police raided his apartment a week later, they found several massive hard drives packed to the brim with video files. This man had been watching hundreds of unsuspecting people, women, couples, children. They all became unwilling participants in his sick, twisted show. He was arrested and I had to testify in court. It was agonizingly difficult, but I knew I had to see it through to the end. The detective who led the case said something to me as I left that I will never forget. "Elena, if it weren't for your attention to that tiny dot and that finger test, we never would have caught him. He could have gone on for years destroying people's lives." Since then, my ritual in any hotel has changed forever. I no longer jump onto the bed with a joyful shout. First thing, I silently walk up to the mirror. I check the gaps, I shine my flashlight into every corner of the frame. I press my finger against the glass. In most cases, everything is perfectly fine. But every time I see a massive, beautiful frame, that cold blue light from room 305 flashes before my eyes. Please be vigilant. Your privacy is not paranoia. It is your legal right. Always trust your intuition. If it feels like you are being watched, you probably are. If this story made you think or opened your eyes to hidden dangers, please share it with your friends and loved ones. You might save someone from a nightmare like this. Subscribe to the channel. Here we raise topics that many prefer to keep silent about. Stay safe.